Okay, we have a new agenda.
Yes, we have a new agenda.
Which is too bad, 'cause she was an excellent teacher. That would have been the year after me.
Yeah, I think she's. Got one of those for my
George, I've finally become a two glasses old man.
A what?
Two sets of glasses old man.
Well, I got these, last year, when
Can't see what's going on in the distance without these, and I can't read without these.
You mean to say all these years as a CPA that you didn't have glasses?
Oh, I had glasses all the time, yeah. You know, it's really funny.
fine print.
I was nearsighted. So, if I couldn't read it, I wanted to bring it up close, and I could focus.
Yeah.
And then I had a cataract surgery, and that's all went away. And so I can't see anything close anymore.
Yeah.
How you protect yourself. I went to a new eye doctor here.
out of anything.
right?
I finally got the kind with the plastic,
Yes.
hard plastic
Found out
straw
that my whole life, between 16 inches and 32 inches.
inside. It's all on the outside, but
I measured
I discovered you're supposed to put the
how far to the computer screen and how far to the paper.
piece on the inside, so because otherwise it would just fall out.
Everybody ready to go?
So anyway,
Well, I have one like that, but then I got it at Target
yeah.
and freeze.
yeah, but it's ridiculous.
Oh, I have to like.
I have to try it. But it seems like a good idea.
Are you ready? Oh, okay. On just this one? Okay. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 17th, 2012 Assessment Appeals Board for Tulare County. On the panel today is Lance Morris, Glenn Fowler, and myself, George Azunian. And the alternate for today will be William McKinley. And first order of business is comments from the board itself, staff members.
I do have a comment.
Yes.
Liz Klotz, who normally sits with me advising your board, is out ill. But we do have an intern with our office. Jennifer Berry is a fourth-year student at San Joaquin College of Law and commutes from here in Visalia, I think.
Welcome.
And so she is interning with our office this semester. And so she came over to see how the Assessment Appeals Board works.
Very good.
What's the name again?
Jennifer Berry.
B-E-R-R-Y?
Welcome. Okay, any comments from the assessor? No? Okay. And then moving on, this is our annual September meeting, and we select a board chair and vice chair for the fiscal year 12-13. Any comments from the board members? Hearing none, do we have a motion to nominate a chair and vice chair?
I'll make a nomination. I nominate George as the chairman of the board.
And vice chair?
Lance
I was going to say Bill McKinley.
or Bill?
That's where I are now, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to select myself, George Azunian, as chair, and Bill McKinley for vice chair. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Actually, there's a typo on the calendar. It will go through August, through till the next September.
Yeah. Okay. Then we have a proposed calendar. And,
Yes, the meeting on the standard time for your meeting in November happens to be the week of Thanksgiving. And we didn't know if any of the board members were wanting to take off that week. I am. So I would like to propose that we move that meeting to the fourth Monday after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's very early this year, it's the 22nd.
okay. Any comments?
I'm sorry, the thing says you want to move it from the 16th to the 26th.
The 19th to the 26th.
Yeah, is that what you want to do, or you want to go?
Yes, no, I'd like to move it
She
off the
wants to move it.
19th.
It's already on the 19th.
Last month, you set it for the standard third Monday, which would be November 19th.
Okay, yeah, I know.
And I'm asking you to move it to the
When is
fourth
Thanks-
Monday.
When is Thanksgiving this year?
It's the 22nd.
Okay.
So this would put it to just after Thanksgiving
Fine.
instead of the week of.
Okay, hearing no opposition, then do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. We move it from the 19th to the 26th of November.
And we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Now, we're down to our agenda item number 4. There's been a postponed item, John George, on the calendar that's been moved to our current date. I have already recused myself on this because I know Mr. George well. And if you'll come forward, and the clerk will swear you in, and the assessor will also be sworn in.
Madam Clerk, before you swear him in, we spoke with Mr. George prior to the hearing, and after the last hearing, when his son was here, we had spoken about receiving some important income and expense information to do the valuation on his property.
Yes.
He apparently had mailed the packet, but we have never received it. So in discussions with Mr. George this morning, it sounds like Mr. George would like to walk the packet to our office tomorrow, and he'd like to postpone the hearing today, maybe to 30 days out, so we can have a chance to review that information.
This would be the second postponement.
Correct.
Right, so your board would have to find that there's good cause for the postponement.
Okay, so do we have any objections on the board, or do we want to move forward? Okay, there's no objections to the board to,
Well,
we
actually,
find.
if you have recused yourself, then we should have the
You're
acting
right.
chair do this.
I'm sorry.
I will entertain a motion to accept the postponement for 30 days.
I'll second. Oh, I'll make the motion, I'm sorry, to postpone the,
Technically to October 15th.
yeah.
Glenn, would you like to second it?
I'll second that. She's unanimous.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried.
Motion's carried.
It's
Okay,
postponed for 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah, or you could just cut the tax in half and I wouldn't have to come back. How's that?
Technically not 30 days to the third Monday of October, which is October 15th.
15th, yes.
October 15th?
Yes,
I'll be here. Same time?
yes, 9 o'clock.
You deliver the package to
And
the
I'm going to
assessor's.
hand deliver the information to the lady?
Yes.
It won't depend on the mail? Fair enough.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Okay, going through the calendar, I understand that item number 5 is going to be pulled from the agenda. And is there any explanation? Who's requesting the postponement?
The applicant requested the second postponement, and the assessor essentially stipulated to that postponement, so we're postponing till November. So it'll go for the November 26th date.
Recall under our new rules, we've set it up so the parties can do that. Not have to come to your board.
Good.
Clerk can approve it.
And the assessor does agree, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Then do I hear a motion to postpone
There
agenda?
would be no action on that.
What's that?
It's been pulled. There's
It's
no
been pulled,
action
so we don't have to have any action.
on it. Right.
Okay. Agenda item number 6. This is a withdrawal. Okay,
We can do it with the withdrawal calendar.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and handle that with the other withdrawals.
Some slight explanation on number 7. The first application, number 2010-162, that's the one where we found a prior withdrawal in our records. But the second one, number 163, is technically a duplicate, and what happened to that one?
It's a duplicate that we had on the agenda to be deemed a duplicate, and this morning we received a withdrawal for it, so I think we can just accept the withdrawal.
So the proper action, so 162 you don't have to do anything on,
Right.
and 163 will go in with the other accept withdrawals.
Withdrawals, okay. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8. Balbir Singh,
Also a withdrawal.
that's a withdrawal as well. Agenda item number 9 is also a withdrawal.
No,
No?
no, 9 and 10 are,
Actually,
No,
Then
yes,
it-
we do
Purple 8 hospitality.
withdrawal on 9.
oh, we did? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
So what is 9? What's the status on
You
9?
have your final calendar?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to hear that case or
Number
9 we're going
10.
to withdraw.
withdrawal?
Yeah,
That's
we'll
what
hear
I
10.
thought.
Okay. Why did I not have, do I not have that? Oh, you didn't give that one to me. Okay, no wonder I didn't know about that one. Okay.
Now, we're down to agenda item number 10, and Appellate Hospitality, is that applicant here? Would you like to step forward? And we're ready to proceed with the case.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, speaking with Mrs. Orloff prior to the hearing, the assessor's office is going to request a postponement today. I'd like to take some additional time to vet 2 of the sales we'd like to use to support the case in order to see if an actual reduction is warranted or a further reduction is warranted for Mrs. Orloff's client. So I'm officially requesting that we postpone the case until October 15th in order to give us that time.
Is that acceptable to you, applicant?
Members of the board, we were ready to go forward this morning, but I don't think I have much say in that as far as the assessor wanting more time. So,
I mean, we could force them to go forward.
Yeah, that's right. So in other words, what I'm saying is generally, if it's not a major inconvenience, it's something that the assessor is requesting. If you wish to do that, fine. If not, we'll go ahead and hear the case.
I thought the assessor had a right to withdraw once by himself.
Up to 25, 20, however many
21.
days, 21 days before the hearing. So once it's less than 21 days before the hearing,
After that, our new local rules require us to come here and petition you personally,
Right.
permit the postponement of the case.
if they don't have a stipulation.
So again, here, I'm just trying to technically make sure that both sides are agreeing to the postponement. If not, we'll hear the case.
my preference is to clearly hear the case.
What's that?
My preference is to hear the case. I came up here from Los Angeles.
Okay.
So if I could get it out of the way, I would like to. I don't know, has the assessor had a continuance yet as of,
We have not exercised our matter of right continuance yet.
So,
Which they lost 21 days before today, so they don't have a right at this point.
yeah, so, well, then, yes, my preference is to go forward.
okay. What is the nature of this case?
The subject property is a hotel in Tulare. It's the Hampton Inn and Suites. It's a Proposition 8 decline in value case for 2011. We withdrew the 2010 case, as you just read in, as item number 9, and that is pending a correction by the assessor.
So the board can do a postponement on its own motion. The board can consider the assessor's request despite the applicant's request to go ahead. So it's within the discretion of the board.
I would just further add to the board, Mrs. Orloff and I have been talking over the last several weeks about some potential changes she'd like to see in the offerings that we've presented to her. So we have been exchanging communication up until early this last week, where Mrs. Orloff had to attend some hearings, we were unable to speak. We did not receive notice that she wasn't going to, that the client wasn't going to accept the proposed reductions until sometime either on Friday or Saturday, because I was not here then. It was over the Prior to coming here this morning, we had some notice that she was going to be here, but there has been negotiations up to the last minute on this particular case. So I'd ask the board to consider that. While I appreciate Mrs. Orloff's having to travel here today, some communication prior to this would have been helpful in order to avoid this particular situation. So
Yes, yeah, I'm torn. I understand that you have made a special trip up here. On the other side of the coin, though, seems to be an important case, and it's going to have some, more than just a simple issue of, let's say, notice or something. So I'm going to defer to the board. What do we want to do? I'm going to ask the board if they want to postpone this. What's that?
I'm not on the panel.
I
Oh,
think
did
we
you-
should propose
Are you
this.
recused on this panel?
No, he's not
the
on,
alternate for
not
today,
on the
sorry.
panel ordinarily.
I think we should just postpone this until Tim has more time to review it and come back another day. I'm sorry you had to travel all this way, but you apparently didn't get a hold of the assessor's office in time to give them adequate notice. So I suggest that we continue on with this another, what's the next meeting, or when would you like to
October
place it on the
15th.
agenda?
October 15th is our next meeting.
Okay.
So it would be a formal motion to postpone.
Yes.
Morris?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, you're making a motion?
I'm making a motion, yes.
Okay, and we have a second. And I realize that this is an inconvenience, but on the other side of the coin, it may be to your advantage for us to go ahead and hear from the assessor. So I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries, and this is postponed to October 15th.
May I also ask, is October 15th okay with you, or did you?
absolutely, and I think I'll have, you and I may have this case resolved prior to that hearing anyway. If we're able to vet the sales properly and figure out if there's additional reductions warranted for your client, you and I could potentially come to an agreement. You may not have to come back here in October.
That would be nice. And I thank you. I didn't, on behalf of my client, I didn't, I'm not wholly opposed to the continuance, but the client, however, would like, the taxpayer would like to see it go forward. So for me to jump in the boat and say, oh yeah, that's fine, as they incur the expense of me traveling was kind of a stretch that I couldn't make officially on the record.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We didn't check to make sure October 15th was okay. I mean, we can move it to later if the calendar doesn't work, or you guys can stipulate.
You can say it's okay for now. As soon as I get back to my office tomorrow, if there's any reason it isn't okay, I'll call
Yeah,
Lisa here and
and
Tim.
we do have the procedure under the rules now where the parties can stipulate.
My hope is that it is, so we finish it sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11. If there is there anyone here for 11? Agenda item 11? Agenda item 12? Agenda item 13, Daily Enterprises? And agenda item number 14. Okay, seeing no one here, does the assessor have any information regarding those cases?
Haven't had any communication from
None. Okay,
particular cases.
so in this particular case, I think we should have a motion on all four of these for denial for failure to appear.
I'll make a motion that agenda items number 11, 12, 13, and 14 be denied for non-appearance.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, that moves us to the issue of the withdrawal calendar, and we should incorporate within the current withdrawal calendar those agenda items, number 6,
Part of 7
part of 7, and 8,
and 9.
and 9. So we have 4 agenda items and the applications attached to them. Do I hear a motion to incorporate those with the current withdrawal calendar? And before we move forward, does anybody have any problem with any of the people on the withdrawal calendar? We've had a change in our rules to not have to recuse ourselves with the withdrawal calendar. But is there any other issues regarding the withdrawal calendar? Hearing none, we'll incorporate those 4 agenda items with the withdrawal calendar and a motion to accept the withdrawals.
I'll make a motion that we accept the withdrawals, and including 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries, and those items are withdrawn. Okay, we're down to closed session items.
There's nothing for closed session.
What's that?
There's nothing for closed session.
Are we gonna talk about the rules?
Oh, that can be an open session.
Oh, we can?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and discuss the rules. There was, first of all, we had received a copy of the current rules. Thank you very much. And second, I believe that we have just modified the rules. However, the assessor has an issue or maybe several issues regarding the rules. And would you like to?
Well, we talked a little bit about that at our last meeting. I think the purpose of today's discussion was more to say, after the board members looked at the rules, we figured out we have an issue with the postponements that we need to address. And that's, after we talked to the assessor. So I really don't think we need to go over that again unless you want to.
Okay.
I'm prepared to come back with a proposal. I did talk to the clerk to the board, Lisa's supervisor, and it's okay with her to go ahead. Said, we don't want to stand in the way of the assessor and have this issue continue to be a problem. And so even though it goes against her normal desire to not amend the rules so often, this is a particular hole that is important to fix, and so she's willing to go ahead and have this board look at it. As you know, under the state constitution, the Board of Supervisors has to approve. Once this function can be done by the Board of Supervisors itself, but once it moves it over to an assessment appeals board, the appeals from there go straight to court. The function is transferred, it's not delegated. Nothing from this board goes back to the Board of Supervisors, so the only control they retain is to approve your rules. And so we have to do an agenda item for the Board of Supervisors every time you change your rules. But my understanding from our last meeting was that you wanted to take a look at the new rules and see if there was anything else that you wanted to change besides the piece that I'll be bringing back in a draft. I don't know if I'll make it by next month, but as soon as I can.
We've got plenty of time today. The agenda went fairly quickly. I would assume that this is the time to discuss anything else that we wish to bring up. Personally, I think that we ought to just go through all of the issues that the assessor has today. And because we have in the past had special meetings that we have held just for the rules, and we can informally discuss them or formally discuss them as we wish. But one of the things that I brought up to the council is, and I don't think that it's a material problem, however, one of the things that we could do to streamline the rules is to, when we do have agendas that are quite long, is to possibly accept or have issues regarding the attendance as far as the applications that are being heard, that they're going to be denied for lack of appearance, to streamline that a little quicker, or some of the other issues. But in general, those are something that we probably need to discuss amongst ourselves to see if there's an issue with the length of the meetings. And as has been the case in the last 6 months, that our meetings have been running very quickly. We haven't had a lot of issues that are out there, but we have had issues when we have had agendas with 50 or 60 or 70 items that are on there that are quite long. We might want to take a look at that, and there's no telling when the agendas may wind up being lengthy again.
Yeah, there are some things that you can do administratively without amending the rules. You know, we can just have an administrative procedure where we put up a sign, you know, so please check in with the clerk if you're here for a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, we pretty much know when the people in the audience are not the assessor employees.
Yes.
Not always, we get some new folks. I think you're both assessor employees, yeah. And so, you know, we're gonna kind of have a sense of it when we have people in the audience that we don't recognize. But that's one administrative thing that we can do without changing the rules at all.
Okay, that's fine.
Have applicants check in with the clerk, and then we can give you the list. and
I
say-
think that the nature of my comment is that even though we have an issue that has precluded or requested upon us to change the rules so rapidly, we ought to wind up trying to get our changes accumulated on an annual basis and just try to do the changes in the rules once a year for the expediency of the process. And if the rules are working well enough to process the workload quickly, maybe even every other year.
Yeah, I don't know what chance you've had to tell the other board members or the assessor. You and I have had a couple conversations.
And I have not.
He's
That's one of the reasons why I was, and it's not
been- Why don't
important
you tell him
enough
what you've
to,
been doing?
yeah, important enough to necessarily go over it. But I think what we ought to do at this stage is to allow the assessor to propose the change of rules, have an open discussion with the board, and see if we can wind up taking care of the immediate issues, and then move forward if we want to do that. But you need to notice the Board of Supervisors.
Well, all we need to do is we can do our whole administrative process.
Yes,
Then once this board has approved it, we go to the Board of Supervisors.
so in other words, in effect, once we have the changes to the rules approved, then you're going to petition the board to let them know that we're
And
proposing a
then they
change.
can just put it on their consent calendar and
Yeah.
approve it. Depending on the timing and whether their board is meeting that week, we can turn the agenda item in ahead of time and then just pull it if the board doesn't approve those particular changes. It's, you know, tidier to, given the gaps in your meeting, you meet once a month, and so we will have plenty of time to get it through the Board of Supervisors
Right.
before your next meeting. You know, if we want to do a specific time to kick it in, then, well, the procedural rules take effect immediately, and they would apply to all existing applications, so it doesn't really matter, as I'm just thinking out loud, it doesn't matter when it gets approved by the board, it will go into effect immediately. We don't need to make it on July 1st or January 1st or anything.
Okay, so amongst the board, is there any objections to allowing the assessor to present his changes now?
Well, we already talked about it.
That is it relatively well. The assessor's request is only that we amend Rule 23 to show that there should be a notification process that has to occur with the postponed hearing. As we currently stand, any postponed hearing is not required to give the assessor's office or the board notice when they're going to appear at that hearing. And so as it stands, as long as they postpone once, they can choose to notify us at the absolute last minute and then appear. And it becomes a very hard situation for us trying to negotiate some type of resolution to any case with the applicant if they're giving us this late notice. So we just would request that the board would put in similar language as with the initial notice with the postponement section of Rule 24.
Okay, I'm looking at Rule 23, is that what you're saying? And can you give me a specific wording that you want?
Off the cuff, Mr. McKinley?
Well, let's back up a second. In other words, notice, where is our provision on notice in the rules now? Not postponement.
It's in the, either the statutes or the regs. And as you recall, when we did our big run-through in 2009, we took out all the things that duplicated statutes and the regs. And I think it's the reg, I'd have to go back and look. On a regular hearing, the clerk has to send out notice 45 days ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So what we put into our local rules then is for that initial hearing, they have to respond at least 21 days before the hearing, saying postpone, yes, I'm going to be there, or withdraw. And so that clears up the calendar for the initial hearing. The problem comes in when they check the postpone one. And it's not as it was here today for the two that we postponed. They're here, they're ready to go forward with the hearing or not, and we are postponing it to a specific date. That's only 30 days away. If we postpone it to a date that's not set, or to a date that's months down the road, I think what the assessor would like to do is put those back in the 45-day hopper and have them have to redo the little check mark on their return notice to say, yes, I really am coming this time.
Mm-hmm. So again, going back to the specific language that's in our rules, what amendment are we actually proposing? What is the language of the amendment?
I think they were
We don't
deferring.
have one.
I think they were deferring to me to come up with that.
Yes.
Okay.
You could simply state, though, somewhere in there, Mrs. Grunwald, something to the effect of, after the matter of right postponement's used by either, or by the applicant, that there's going to be a 60-day wait till the next hearing when it can be heard, so it can be renoticed. Something along that lines, I think, would work very adequately in making sure this issue doesn't appear on the calendar.
The only push we have is when we have several, in our next round, over our succeeding calendar, the turnaround for the clerk can be tricky between when we have moved a meeting to the fourth Monday, when it messes up her internal procedures when we move to the fourth Monday, because then, the 45-day notices come a lot sooner. And so we'll just have to work on that to make sure that if we postpone one at one meeting, that we can still get in 2 months later. Because the 45 days gets a lot squished when we have like in January, we're on the fourth Monday, but then in March, we're back on the third Monday. Counting back that 60 days and making sure we include everything. But that's an administrative piece, not something that has to be in the rules.
So would you like us to postpone this discussion until the next meeting?
Well, I think our thought was, and that was my understanding from you, is that the board members were going to take a look at the rules and see if there was anything else
Right.
you wanted me to include in the next
And
draft.
in effect, basically,
Ted, you had been telling, he's been moonlighting. He has,
one of the things that...
he has grandkids in Alameda County?
Yes, in effect, I have attended a couple of meetings in the Alameda County, and one of the reasons why I did this is that there is no association. The assessors have an association amongst themselves statewide, but the panel does not. Every panel works on its own, and what I found is that I was watching this meeting and saying, this is so much different than what we do, and they do not have a set of rules. Their activity level is at least 3 times, if not 4 and 5 times, heavier than ours. They have 15 members divided amongst 5 panels that meet twice a week. There is a lot of...
Each panel doesn't meet twice a week.
No, they rotate. So in other words, a panel member should be on once a month, and possibly there may be a panel that comes on twice a month. Well, one of the things that the differences between the two appear to be a traditional method of handling the administrative issues according to the rules. So what I was wanting to do is to discuss these the next time we meet formally amongst ourselves regarding the rules, and here we are. That's exactly what we're talking about, is amending the rules to see if that's necessary. Now, in effect, the other question that I had of the assessor is that we've had a change of assessor from with Mr. Hill coming on to the being the assessor. Is there an organizational period of time where the staff is getting, you might say, reorganized under a new assessor, where some of these changes regarding the procedures that you have are still in flux, or have they been more or less ironed out where routine issues come up? Because in effect, the rules are going to affect how you do your business as well.
I don't perceive there to be a great flux going on in the office as far as the staff. Mr. Hill, having been a longtime assessor's office employee, really has kind of led to some consistency in how we do operations.
Yes.
With the rules, because when they were originally written have been so well done, just the small tweaking that we're doing just helps aid us in being more efficient so that we can work through these cases. As you well know, Mr. Chairman, we have had a backlog of these cases for the last 2 years, and we're making very hard efforts to process through them. So the only reason we're requesting some of the rule changes, and I think this will probably be one of the very few times you see us do this, is just to aid that efficiency so we can get this work processed and moved on.
Yes. Well, in effect, basically, my more or less observation was there to streamline things and to be able to handle long agendas, which we have not had in the last 6 months, with the exception of maybe one meeting that we've had. We've been able to digest in fact, one of the issues that I brought up to the chairman, one of the boards that I had met, after telling him how we do things relative to how they do things, his response was, "How do you get anything done?" But in effect, we do. We pretty much handle it without any issue. So in effect, it may not necessarily, if we were to, let's say, review this again next year, okay, this entire coming year may wind up being just fine. But if we wind up with issues where we have a calendar of 50 or 60 or 70 items, then it becomes important for the rules to be able to process that bulk of work quickly. And what I'm asking is that, and I think you pretty much answered it, that it's not necessarily an issue of ongoing change of procedures or the workings of the assessor.
That is correct. We're
Right.
working extremely hard to make sure those calendars with those 50 items on it don't occur. So
Yes.
if I can give the board some reassurance, I think that we'll be very successful at that in the future, much as we've been in the last 6 months, at limiting those calendars down to a very manageable number.
Sure, I appreciate that.
There are other things that you can consider procedurally with or without changing the rules. The statutes and regulations are silent on withdrawals. And I do know that different counties approach that differently. In some systems, the clerk just does it, and the board never sees it. And many years ago, our clerk and the board, the practice arose, I don't know if they ever formally talked about it, that they just felt more comfortable as a clerk if the board formally approved those.
Mm-hmm.
So you could shove that back on the clerk. That would take a whole slug of agenda items off.
And we could, like,
And so
and
that's
I'm being
a piece to
repetitious
consider.
here,
I
but,
don't even remember what we've got in the rules about withdrawals, if anything.
so it's not a problem until we wind up seeing that we do need to address it, and it may be a while before we need to. As far as I'm concerned, we could process with the existing rules as they are.
Did any of the other board members see anything that I mean, we did just tweak them this spring, so we haven't really implemented them except for the postponement piece where we saw immediately that there were some issues with that.
So going back to square one, in effect, if we wanted to modify these rules to accommodate the postponement issue that you had brought up, I don't see that there's any objection to the board to doing that
I
now.
just need to bring you back formal language.
Yeah,
Now, and Mr. Chairman, this is an issue too, that if the board wanted to wait until our annual process to review, the assessor's office would be fine with that. I mean, it's not a crucial issue, it's just a matter of inconvenience.
right. Well, this is the time to take those issues now. We have the time. In other words, we're not so flooded with activity. In other words, depending on what happens on the economy and people's desires to have issues heard, that could change the entire circumstance. But that's not the case now, so right now is the time to do it.
Mr. Orloff would like to comment.
Yes, go right ahead.
Comment too, is this open forum comment?
Sure, go right ahead.
Do I need to come up or can I do it?
No, whatever you like.
I also attend, I moonlight in many other counties, as it were, and I don't have your rule book in front of me. Most counties have similar rule books, so I usually know how the rules go. The only thing I would ask, maybe that you take into consideration, is most counties, when the taxpayer and the assessor come to an agreement, there's usually a stipulation form. And usually that stipulation form is either read into the record in front of the assessor's office, or approved by county council, or something of that nature, so that you have something in writing reflecting that the assessor and the applicant came to an agreement. This is one of the rare and few counties that does not have that. And you heard this morning that I read it in 2010, where the clerk read it on behalf of the taxpayer, and I signed the paperwork that I had a withdrawal in 2010. In fact, my withdrawal was a withdrawal, the assessor and I came to an agreement, and I thoroughly trust Mr. Copenhofer that he says he's going to do what he's going to do. I gave him two different examples. I said, if you win the lotto tomorrow and no one ever sees you again, what do I have? And he liked that scenario. I said, the other scenario is if you get in an accident and you're gone, and you no longer exist. I said, either way, I said, it is a very uncomfortable feeling. It's not one that I have in any other counties that we operate in, that I'm in on a regular basis throughout California, that you have this withdrawal, when you're in fact not withdrawing. I mean, you're agreeing to a reduction that's below the rule. Is there any way you could institute some type of change in your system? Because the official record would reflect that I withdrew today, which is
Right, Ms. Orloff, we actually, on certain cases, we do the stipulation, we have that process in place. But using Rule 4831A, we go through and try to, prior to the hearing, do reductions so that the board doesn't have to attend to those issues in the normal course of the meetings in order to aid them in having a very efficient calendar. So the process we had today was slightly unusual in your respect, that we're able to come to an agreement in the sense that we just do the reduction for you, not clog their system up, and then just have you withdraw the application. So we try to use that process as often as we can in order to aid the board in being, extremely efficient at their job. But with the stipulations that we come to an agreement with, there are opportunities and times where we do use that stipulation form to read that into the record.
For the benefit of the board, the technical difference from your point of view is the assessor is doing a roll correction. They've agreed that it was improperly valued at the time and they just change it, as opposed to a stipulation where the board formally approves it. And so I'm not sure that there's anything that would be within your board's jurisdiction. If the assessor chooses to do it by way of a roll correction, it just drops off your list of cases.
Do you legally have the right to go back to a closed roll and make a correction like that? Based on,
Rule 4831A, I think it is. I could give you the code section. That may be the inappropriate one off the cuff.
Or 4831.5 is.
That was one of the big issues that I picked up, is that the stipulations that are handled in Alameda County are not voted by the board. The chairman simply accepts them, subject to acceptance by county council, and the county council is sitting right here. Their county council isn't.
Additionally, Ms. Orloff, if you feel more comfortable, we can accommodate you through by doing each one as a stipulation. If your office in particular, you as an agent, would like to see that, we're more than willing to come in here and do the stipulations for you.
well, I appreciate your comment on our office. I don't want to be the exception, it's just something as we talk about other counties.
Right.
I see, and yes, quite a few other counties, it doesn't get put up to discussion in front
Right.
It's more of the value that comes out as a result of the appeal that was filed. In other words, if I wouldn't have had the appeal filed, technically, I couldn't really get the assessor to go back and look at something and say, I'm gonna make a roll correction. I mean, there's many properties that I could say to Larry should have been filed on in the calendar year 2010. I can call Mr. Copeland up, and he says, you didn't have an appeal application filed, you can't open up the door on everything, which is how it should be. So, to me, it's, the stipulation process, I think for the public's benefit, not just mine, is more of a formal response to the appeal application that was filed in the first place versus a roll correction, which I often look at a roll correction is if I call up the assessor and I find out, hey, you know, you thought it was a 30,000 square foot building, it really is a 20,000 square foot building, that's an error, or that's a correction based on fact, not a judgment call. So, I don't know, just as I listen to your rules, that's one of the major things to me. And I don't think it would require much more time on your part if you have county council sitting here ratifying those stipulations.
Exactly.
It would give a far better paper trail, in my opinion, than this process of saying, we withdraw.
I would have to say that, Mrs. Orloff, the last thing the government needs is more paperwork in it. What you're not privy to is the calendars. While this has been relatively small today, we've had ones where we've had 500 and 600 withdrawals, which means that we have to go through and prep each one of those stipulations just to come and have the board read each one of those in. The time that would take would cause this meeting to go on for, I would imagine, something like 6 to 12 hours. And so, right, if your idea is that we should go through and in order to have a paper trail that can be verified and followed, practice that stipulation with every single withdrawal rather than doing the withdrawal, then it really does start to muck up the system a little bit.
But again, I don't think you do a stipulation for a withdrawal. We're not stipulating to agree to withdraw. It's only a stipulation if you're changing the value. If there's a withdrawal and I send a letter to the clerk of the board and say, even the clerk of the board can pay for it, or I've appeared and said I'm withdrawing. And in my mind, then that issue is, I got the value reduction, I'm done, I'm finished. I thought maybe there was a case, there isn't a case now, which is entirely, and you're saying that your 500 or 600 withdrawals are all value reduction?
Yes. Well, at least the majority of them. Additionally, yes, you are right. It does require you as a rep to trust that the individual levying taxes against your client is going to follow through on that. But I would think that you would find great honesty in most people, and outside of maybe Los Angeles County, the people that do this particular job for a living. So if that's something, like I said, specifically that your office would prefer just because you would feel, you know, like you could sleep better at night knowing that all of those things have been read and formalized, it's something that we can definitely do for you if that's a process that you or any other agent would prefer.
Yeah, it's something we certainly will need to probably go forward more. And again, it's not, you know, you made this statement about government not wanting more paperwork, I understand that. And it's not a question of our office trusting your office or not trusting it. It's more of a human error type situation, which those occur in our office, and I'm sure somewhere along the way they occur in your office. And it's not so much a matter of trust, it's a matter of, okay, what do I do when things didn't happen the way I thought they were going to happen? And like I said, you may have been here many years, but people also move along, and someone else is a different appraiser. And if you're not there anymore, then all of a sudden the trust or the conversation I have with the person that's gone. And then I have not much in writing other than me saying I'm withdrawing.
Okay, well, I think that if it's acceptable to the board, we're going to go ahead and allow our council to propose specific changes.
Whether I make it for October or not, I don't know, but we'll get there.
Okay, if we need to postpone it another month or so, that's fine, but we can go ahead and get this out of the way. Probably now is the time to do it. Is there any other issues that the assessor or members of the board like to bring up? Hearing none, the Assessment Appeals Board for Tulare County for September 17th, 2012 is now adjourned.